A biblical-level plague is now hit Mecca. The question being asked, is this a divine message?
A biblical-level plague stormed through Mecca, the holiest site in Islam. The Grand Mosque in Saudi Arabia's sacred city of Mecca has been bombarded by a swarm of insects, and local authorities are struggling to clean up the mess. This extraordinary event unfolded in the aftermath of a significant rainfall, amplifying concerns among Muslims worldwide. There were varying accounts regarding the identification of the bugs, with suggestions ranging from cockroaches and crickets to the more ominous possibility of locusts. While a majority tended to lean towards the latter, there was still lots of uncertainty, leading to debates about whether this was a mere natural phenomenon or a sign of deeper significance, perhaps even a divine message. For Muslims, Mecca holds unparalleled religious significance. The Kaaba, a cube-shaped structure traditionally believed to have been built by the prophet Abraham and his son Ishmael for the exclusive worship of Allah, stands as the spiritual nucleus of this sacred city. Additionally, Mecca bears the distinction of being the birthplace of the Prophet Muhammad, a pivotal figure in the Islamic faith, contributing substantially to its growth and dissemination. As the focal point of Islamic worship, Mecca draws Muslims from all corners of the globe. Located in present-day Saudi Arabia, Mecca remains the spiritual compass for Muslims, irrespective of geographical distances or adversities such as wars and natural disasters. The Kaaba, subject to numerous renovations over the centuries, now manifests as a refined black stone cube situated prominently at the center of the principal mosque, known as Masjid al-Haram. One of the important things in Islam is the Hajj, where Muslims go to Mecca and walk around the Kaaba.
What's happening right now in Mecca is beyond belief. The holiest city in Islam has been swarmed by a catastrophic plague of locusts during the holy month of Ramadan. But is this just a freak of nature or a divine intervention?
People who made this special trip still remember and talk about the time when a bunch of bugs invaded during the Hajj. Some folks think that the bugs, especially locusts, spread more because of natural reasons. When it rains a lot, it makes things worse. The rain brings lots of plants, which help bugs reproduce and survive. We all remember how Mecca and Medina got heavy rain, turning the land all green and nice. But why did the locusts show up at the Grand Mosque? Experts from the Mecca municipality went to the Grand Mosque to figure out why there were suddenly so many black grasshoppers and other bugs in the holy areas. They took some bug samples to study and find out why there were so many all of a sudden. The specialists also wanted to know where the bugs came from, so they could get rid of them fast and stop them from coming back. Fahd al-Malki, the person in charge of managing and cleaning the carpets at the Grand Mosque, said they did a good job getting rid of most of the bugs before Friday prayers. He reassured everyone, saying the bugs didn't harm anyone who was praying. But they still didn't know exactly where the bugs were coming from or how to completely get rid of them. He explained that the bugs would show up suddenly between the Isha prayer and sunrise, but the efforts to fight them in the past few days had made their numbers go down a lot. So it seems like they're getting things under control in the plazas and the Mataf area. We're all working together to get rid of those black grasshoppers in the Grand Mosque, so everyone praying and visiting can be safe and comfortable, he said. The people in charge have come up with a plan to stop bugs from being in the Grand Mosque, especially on Fridays when a lot of people gather to pray.
The Times of Israel reported that authorities in Mecca said specialized teams have been directed to work in the fight to eliminate the insects.
Now, they have this new thing called Caesar mob. It's like a machine that attracts bugs to one place, and then they spray insecticides on them. They have about 100 of these machines, and they use them all the time, day and night, with different groups working in shifts. Every day at 7:30 in the morning, they clean the outside and inside areas, including the mataf where people walk around the Kaaba. They do this cleaning before they put out the carpets. They also make sure to clean and make the area where the imam stands smell nice. The Holy Mecca municipality is taking this bug problem seriously. They sent out 22 teams with 138 people and 111 devices to deal with the so-called night cockroaches. These teams focused on places where the bugs like to hang out, such as sanitation areas and water drains. The municipality is using all their efforts and resources to get rid of these bugs and make sure everyone visiting the sacred house of God is safe. Even though these bugs are a big annoyance, experts say they don't spread diseases to humans, and they don't bite or sting. The head of the Plant Protection Department at King Saud University's Faculty of Food and Agricultural Sciences explained that these bugs are more like grasshoppers and crickets than the regular cockroaches we might find in our homes. Zafar, the expert, said people in Mecca should avoid eating or selling the locusts. He wanted to make it clear that these bugs do not transmit diseases, and that their swarming was likely because of recent rains. He estimated that about 30,000 locusts had come to Mecca, but in larger groups, there could be hundreds of thousands. People on social media couldn't help but see this bug invasion as having some religious meaning.
So the question now really is this a divine message in Mecca?
In different religious traditions like Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, there's a belief that locust swarms can be a sign of divine punishment. In the Quran, verse 7:133 talks about how God used a plague, including locusts, against the people of Egypt. It says, "Then we afflicted them with a great flood and locusts, and the lice and the frogs and the blood." All these were distinct signs, and yet they remained haughty. They were wicked people. According to the Quran, these plagues convinced the Pharaoh to let the Israelites go, and the prophet Moses led them to the Promised Land. In the Bible, in the book of Exodus, the 8th plague sent by God to get Pharaoh to free the Israelites was a swarm of locusts. The Lord told Moses to stretch out his hand over Egypt, and locusts covered the land, eating everything in the fields. An east wind blew the locusts all over Egypt, and by the next morning, the whole country was covered. This was the 8th out of 10 plagues sent by God to Egypt, and each one was more severe than the previous.
In Ethiopia,
Even
in
after
Somalia,
witnessing
in
these
25
terrible
years,
events,
and the worst
Pharaoh
that we've
still
seen
refused to
in
let the
Kenya
Israelites go.
over 70
The
years.
locusts were seen as a sign of God's anger and destruction, showing how severe the punishment would be for a country that didn't follow God's commands.
Demonstration of power, God sent swarms of locusts to plague Egypt in order to humble Pharaoh after he refused to free the enslaved Israelites.
The story about Pharaoh and the locusts shows that sometimes people can be proud and not do what God wants. But God gave Pharaoh many chances to change his mind. There were 10 disasters, and each one was worse than the last. This was like a way of giving Pharaoh time to think and do the right thing by letting the Israelites go. In the end, it's up to each person to decide if they want to follow what God says or not. The important thing to remember is that God gives everyone a chance to be saved and make things right with Him. In another part of the Bible, Joel talks about locusts, and it's not a good thing. These locusts come in a huge swarm and eat everything in their path, leaving nothing behind. Joel uses this locust invasion as a way to explain what happens when people do wrong things and don't follow God's rules. The locusts are like a symbol for turning away from God. Joel's words are like a call for people to say sorry to God and make peace with Him. It says that everyone is responsible for what they do, and if they don't fix the wrong things they've done, it can keep getting worse. Each layer of locusts in the story represents different bad things that happen when we don't fix our mistakes quickly. Joel's message is both a warning and a chance to be saved. Even though the locusts cause a lot of problems, they also give people a chance to stop doing wrong things and come back to God. The destruction caused by the locusts is like a loud signal telling people to admit they were wrong and ask for forgiveness before the problems become too much to handle. It's really important for us to understand how serious it is when we do things that go against what God wants. This is like a big warning that if we keep disobeying God, the problems can get worse over time. The right thing to do is to stop doing those wrong things, ask God for forgiveness, and hope for His mercy. In another part of the Bible called the Book of Revelation, there's a mention of locusts, but this time it's in a symbolic way, talking about the end of the world. These locusts are the same ones mentioned earlier, and they have power like scorpions. The writer says they were told not to harm the grass on the ground, but all the green grass was burned up. Now when they talk about earth, it could mean a specific place like Israel, or a part of the earth, or even the whole thing. This means that whatever happened with the first trumpet could only cause damage in one place where all the grass got burned. It's important to understand that the word grass can mean both the actual green plants and other things. In this story, these locusts have a leader and a clear goal. The text also says they were told not to harm any green trees or plants. The color green usually means life, health, and energy. So the green trees might represent people in charge, those with authority, and the green grass could stand for regular people, maybe even animals like pets or farm animals. This is just an educated guess, and it's tough to say for sure what exactly is being talked about. It seems like these metaphors are about anything that's living and doing well. Now, let's break down these complex words and understand what's being said. The idea here is that only men who don't have God's special mark on their foreheads are the ones in trouble. Sadly, locusts are naturally made to eat plants, and that's just what they do. It's like their nature, and they can't really go against that. But here, these locusts are told to do something different, something that's not their usual behavior. In an earlier part, it talked about the seal of God, like a special mark, being put on 144,000 Israelites. It seems like the troubles mentioned in chapter 8 are happening mainly in the land of Israel. Do you believe these locusts being sent to Mecca is a sign of the end of times? What is the meaning behind the thousands of locusts swarming the holy mosque?